Colorado is recognized.
I thank the chairman. Mr. Attorney General, welcome. And my friend and colleague from Colorado outlined your biography, I thought, very well. But he left out 2 points that I'd like to mention. One is, not only did you lead the prosecution of the Oklahoma City bombing case, but in that case, the death penalty was asked for and actually received, and Timothy McVeigh was executed. Not exactly a Democrat priority to seek the death penalty in cases, but you did so because of the rule of law. You did so because the facts and the law demanded that you did so, and you followed the facts and the law in that situation. The other issue I wanted, or example in your bio that I wanted to point out, is my understanding that in your conference room, you have a portrait of Elliot Richardson. And the reason you have a portrait of Elliot Richardson is because he demanded that the Department of Justice stay independent from the Nixon administration. He had the backbone to stand up to the President of the United States and make sure that the Department of Justice would not become the government's lawyer. You put that portrait there soon after you became Attorney General because it was a signal. It was a signal to the world that you wanted to be known in the same way that others that had come before you were known. And frankly, one of the reasons I respect Attorney General Barr so much is because after January 6th, he made the very difficult decision to walk into the president's office and tell the president the election was not stolen. We have looked at this. And for that reason, he resigned before January 20th when power was turned over. But Mr. Attorney General, you're unable to answer some questions here, but I'll answer them for you. Do you know what people would have said if you had asked for U.S. Attorney Weiss's resignation when you became Attorney General? I'm sorry, U.S. Attorney. Yeah, U.S. Attorney Weiss's resignation. They would have said that you were obstructing the Hunter Biden investigation, that you were firing a Republican appointee so that you could appoint a Democrat to slow walk this investigation and lose the leadership of that investigation. If you had made the same decision a year later because you were frustrated that the prosecution wasn't moving fast enough, they would have again said that you were interfering with the prosecution. If you, when U.S. Attorney Weiss asked to become special counsel, if you had made the decision then to appoint someone else to special counsel, people would have criticized you because you would have been taking someone out of the investigation that knew the facts, that could lead the investigation, and put someone in who would have had to come up to speed on the investigation and wouldn't have allowed major decisions to be made until they came up to speed. So in 3 different opportunities where you could have acted, you would have been criticized either way, whether you acted or did not act in that situation. Far from slow walking, really, once the Trump administration decided that that was the person leading the investigation, your hands were tied. You didn't have the opportunity to make a decision on the leadership of that investigation. But speaking of slow walking, I appreciate your reference in your opening remarks, your written opening remarks, to the Department of Justice strongly supports efforts by Congress to promote competition in digital markets by passing legislation to prohibit certain anti-competitive practices by dominant online platforms. You can't say who they are, but I can. Apple, Amazon, Facebook, and Google are monopolies, and they have been harming this country and harming competition in that particular market for years. And Congress for 5 years has been investigating and offering bills on that subject. They spent $250 million, according to reports, in the last Congress to defeat those bills. And now we do nothing in this Congress to try to deal with that very serious issue. In fact, there are efforts, I'm told, over in the Senate, and I use the word effort and Senate very carefully in the same sentence, but there are efforts in the Senate, S 2321, to take $50 million in funding for the Department of Justice Antitrust Division, and it would be an 18% cut, and to move that money to the General Department of Justice Operations Fund to try to further cripple the efforts that are going on in court. The state attorney generals and the Antitrust Division and Federal Trade Commission are doing a great job jointly in trying to combat the scourge of these monopolies. My question to you is, will you make sure that the Antitrust Division is properly funded so it can continue this very serious effort at stopping these monopolies from harming our children, from harming competition, and from further strengthening China's position in this area?
Yes, I absolutely will. And one of the first things I did in the first budget opportunity we had was to ask for more money for the Antitrust Division than had been given in quite a long time, and to ask for the fees that are paid for purposes of merger analysis be given to the Antitrust Division directly rather than to go into a general fund.
Thank you. I yield back.
I would just point out for the record that Attorney General Barr left the Trump administration on December 23rd, 2020, not between January 6th and January 20th, 2021. With that, I recognize the gentlelady.
Mr. Chairman, I'm sorry, since he mentioned monopoly, could I also enter into the record this article about the MasterCard Visa duopoly by Proactive and their target of a bipartisan bill to reform this monopoly? Could I insert that into the record, please?
Without objection, unanimous consent accepted. Gentlelady.